So, today's objectives. We're going to be looking at Benchmark Advance. We're going to be looking at a day in action and how to keep a whole group mini lesson mini, which is going to be really crucial for our virtual environments. We're also going to be looking at that preparation for planning. We're going to look at Benchmark Advanced resources to help with that planning and kind of some planning templates that we have embedded in this slide deck that you can use to support you as you move into planning for remote and hybrid instruction. And we're also going to talk about some tools for digital instruction as well in Benchmark Advanced. And so we're going to start off with how well do you know Benchmark? And so we have 1, 2, 3, or 4. I've never used it before. I've used pieces of it. I've tried it. I'm very comfortable with it. Go ahead and throw in a number into the chat here and let us know how well you know Benchmark at this time. Perfect. All right, I'm seeing a couple of 1s and I'm also seeing a couple of 3s. Okay, so we've got a diverse group here. So we're definitely going to cover the basics, but please keep us posted in the chat with some questions as we go through. We want to make sure that everybody's needs are met in today's presentation. So let's kind of look at the overview of Benchmark Advance. Benchmark Advance is our literacy program that the district has adopted to really target that balanced literacy instruction, where many components of Benchmark are going to meet that whole group instruction where you're modeling, you're providing guided practice, and you're really giving that access to grade level complex text. Other components of Benchmark are going to be best utilized for small group instruction where you can really provide that differentiated practice and application to the topics you covered in that whole group instruction. And so first we want to check in with everybody and we want to make sure that everybody can get access to Benchmark Universe. And so Benchmark Universe is accessible in my.aps.edu. It is the button on there that has the planet. It has Benchmark Universe underneath it. It's shown here on the screen on that last row. And so first I want to check in and either get a yes or no in the chat if you have been able to get into Benchmark Universe from my.aps.edu. We want to make sure that everybody has got that access. Excellent. Thank you. Yes, I see another yes. Benchmark ELA reading only, and that should be the correct. That should be the correct button, if I am correct. Is that right? Is that right, Andrea? Say Benchmark ELA reading? Okay, perfect, yes. Awesome, okay. So that's the button that you are always going to click on to get access to Benchmark Advanced for your program. Yes, you are right, Benchmark ELA reading. That's exactly what the button says underneath at this point now. So when you click on that button, you're going to be brought to your main menu screen. This is your dashboard. And the dashboard is going to have all of your resources located in one area for you to click on. At this point, the most important area for you to have access to is the button underneath Learning Resources that says Benchmark Advance. Now, we're going to go into some of the items in the Professional Learning tab a little later on today, and the Assessments tab is not something you particularly need to know about at this time. You only need to really know about it if your school has purchased the e-assessment suite. Now, if your school has purchased that, we do have resources to train you in the e-assessments, but this is only a school-by-school purchase. This is not something that the district has provided for every single school site. So for this particular time, we're going to be in that Benchmark Advance. Now, when you enter Benchmark Advance, it's going to show up with this library. And this library is going to give you access to all of your resources within Benchmark Advance. Now, when looking at this entire list, there can be a lot of resources, and it can be really burdensome to look at so many resources. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you're actually going to have a filter that Andrea is circling right now on the slides. And so you're going to click your grade, then you'll click the unit that you're working on, and then if you want to tailor those resources further, you can actually filter by the week that you are working on. So then that way, you only have to look at the resources that are the most important to you at that particular time. Now, out of all of those resources, there is one that you really have to know today, and that is your TRS. You're going to know that it's your TRS because it's going to have a little blue box on there that says TRS. It's your teacher resource system, and that is your entire teacher's guide. Everything you need is going to be in there. So let's dive into it a little bit. Now, it's going to have multiple components inside. And on the left-hand side of the screen and at the top of the TRS, you're going to see various options to click on and go through at your leisure to kind of explore those components within there, especially those components at a glance, which will give you an idea of what's in the program. Now, on that left-hand side, you're going to see a couple of options for week 1, week 2, and week 3. Those are going to take you to a weekly lesson plan outline called either Mini Lessons at a Glance or the Comprehensive Literacy Planner, depending on what grade level you're teaching. And those will outline all of the lessons that you are going to teach for that week. And so all of those lessons, the entire unit is centered around an essential question. And this essential question does differ by grade level, but not by necessarily the content in the grade levels. So every time you have a new topic, a new essential question for a unit, just know that grade levels before you and after you are focusing on this same content, but the essential question is just a little bit different every single time. So that way, throughout each of the grade levels, they are building on that content knowledge in just a slight change of the essential question. And so all of your mini lessons are going to be set up in a certain sequence. Now, for the beginning of Benchmark, your mini lessons are going to follow this sequence as you introduce skills to the students, following a model, a guided practice, and then by the end of your lesson, an ability to apply the understanding. Now, in later units, this transfers as students get multiple exposures to the skills. It becomes a read, collaborate, reinforce and reaffirm together in a group, and then apply understanding in independent settings. So something to consider as you're going into your classrooms is understanding whether your students have had Benchmark before or if you're just transitioning into Benchmark now. And so if you are just transitioning into Benchmark now with your students, just understand that you may be doing more modeling and guided practice rather than read and collaborate at this time, because you are getting the students to understand the routines and those skills that they are practicing. Now, one of the key instructional strategies in your mini lessons is text annotation. And this can be done in a variety of ways. So text annotation is something that the students can do in their own Benchmark Universe accounts. There are some tools in there that they can use to edit the text and annotate and show their thinking. However, through something like a materials drop-off, your students can also engage in the text at home with highlighting and writing their notes as well into these close readers. They are consumable, and so the students can write on them to their heart's desire. And so in the mini lesson sequence, it's a gradual release of responsibility. And so in that mini lesson, you're spending a short chunk of time showing the students the strategy or the skill using the text. And you may be using some model thinking aloud to engage the students in what you're trying to teach. Then it's going to move from that modeling to a guided practice. And that guided practice is either you do it with them or they're going to try it together with a partner. Eventually, within that 15-minute time frame, they're going to have gone through the modeling and the guided practice and be ready for that independent apply understanding section. It's not originally a part of that 15 minutes, but this is something that the students could do in a small group. They could do it asynchronously at home. They could also do it just independently at their desk, and they could even do it collaboratively in a small group to really practice that skill. Now, in a face-to-face environment, this is what a normal instructional week looks like at the various grade levels. Now, for grades K and 1, you're going to be seeing a lot more with phonics and a lot more with shared reading because those early grade levels are greatly focused on those foundational skills. But you'll also be embedding some language comprehension through extended reads and writing mini lessons with those students. Also finding some time during that day for a read aloud. Now, once we get into second grade, it starts to change a little bit where the structure is similar to K and 1, but the materials that the students are using in second grade are that's not a word, are more closely related to what the students have in third, fourth, and fifth grade. So that way, when we transfer into third, fourth, and fifth grade, they are now spending the majority of their time on comprehension and writing, and with a little bit of time dedicated to that phonics work. And so you'll see that in each of these grade levels, there is still dedicated time for read alouds because that is still an important part of their day, but the focus changes a little bit throughout each of the grade levels. Now, in this kind of an instructional setting, it's not always possible to get through every single component. Now, my counterpart, Andrea, is going to talk us through how to take something like this and make it feasible for a hybrid or a virtual setting.
Thanks, Maggie.
Ooh, you put yourself on mute, Andrea.
Too many buttons happening today. Sorry, guys. So this slide here is going to show you what a typical work day would look like in a face-to-face setting, moving from whole group to small group, back and forth throughout your day to fill up that 90-minute block or even more than that. We recognize that in a hybrid setting or even in a virtual setting, we just don't have that much time with our students in front of us or even on screen with them. So we've created a mock-up of a possible hybrid or a virtual schedule that would work well, taking into consideration what the essential standards might be and what those key pieces are that your students would be able to work through. So thinking of that K2 setting, you can see that schedule on the right there, or on the left, I'm sorry, where you start with whole group reading. That's something that happens every day. This can be embedded into your morning meeting. This can be part of a daily routine that your students show up every day and can hear some whole group reading. Then moving right into a mini lesson. So that can be a reading or a writing mini lesson depending on your focus. And again, keeping those mini, so only 15 to 20 minutes. So your students aren't in front of the screen terribly long as a whole group setting. From then, you're going to break into possibly 2 or 3 small groups, depending on the level that your students need. And some of those groups might be where you take that extended reading opportunity and really dive deeper, or do a phonics lesson, maybe even that's foundations. If you have an educational assistant with you in the kindergarten level, this is a great opportunity to kind of divide and conquer. After about 15 minutes, those groups could easily switch. And if you needed to add in a third group, if your students were able to do that, you could easily add in asynchronous time and rotate that group 3 times. Some of the asynchronous work that's available to you is the independent writing, any of the learning games, the digital learning games that are out there, as well as the e-pocket charts, and of course, any of the listen to reading as a possible read aloud that could be happening asynchronously. And so this provides an opportunity for 2 to 3 small group models where your students aren't online for a very long time, but they're getting very direct and supported instruction during those times. Now, if you are all by yourself and you don't have an opportunity to meet with small groups, thinking about creative ways to make those 3 possible sections of work happen for small groups so that it can be differentiated and meet their needs. Now, for the upper grades as 3, 4, and 5, they're a little bit more independent. They are typically more able to work in small group breakout rooms. And so the schedule that we've set up here, again, starts with an extended read. The entire class is all together working on a targeted skill to start off the day, and then possibly breaking into 3 or 4 smaller groups that are teacher-led, so that the teacher can differentiate one of those small groups, and other groups can be doing similar work but working independently. And so that's where some of those hybrid groups could be, or some of that asynchronous work, where maybe they were doing word work and vocabulary or independent writing. And so you can kind of see where these could rotate based on the schedule that you have allowed for you, as well as the needs that your students have. And so these are just 2 possible sections that would cover all of the components within Benchmark, but in a little bit more of a creative way, especially now that we're in hybrid or virtual learning. And so this is just an example we wanted to share as something that you could start to think about and maybe plug in 1 or 2 pieces as you're more comfortable kind of building up some more about Benchmark. Now, I want to pull your attention back to that home screen in Benchmark Universe, where you have some learning resources for distance learning. Now, once you click into Benchmark Universe, you're going to see distance learning is one of the options there on the side. When you click into that, you're going to have week-by-week lesson plans that are already created in slides for you that support benchmark learning and a distance learning. So you can go in and you have units 1 through 10 that are already created for you. You can pick and choose some of these activities. You can assign these to your Google Classroom, or it can just maybe spark an interest in an idea for how you could teach some of these concepts through distance learning. But Benchmark has already created them for you in a package, if you would. So take a look at those as a place to maybe pick and choose some activities to really support your distance learning. The other option that's over there for you, because I know our session today is very short, is the virtual professional learning series that they have also on your home screen that Maggie mentioned earlier. In that button, you're going to find tons of videos and resources that are going to help you with little specific areas within Benchmark. You can see that, right? Tech Talks for grades K and 1, or Voices from the Field, getting your year started. So you can click on one of those. They're typically very short, maybe even 10 to 15 minutes long. Some of them are longer, where you can kind of dive into some of the ideas within Benchmark and get to learn a little bit more on your own time with a Benchmark trainer. Type in the chat for me real quick if you've ever used the virtual professional learning or the distance slides. I'm just curious to see if that's something you've used before or not. So just give me a yes or a no for those 2 ideas, because they are really great resources at your fingertips, ready to help you be more successful. So I see lots of no's, so I'm glad I was able to show you 1 tip that you might be able to take back to your classroom tomorrow. Now, the other thing that we've created for you here is an alignment of the essential standards and benchmark advanced standards. So you can see as you move through units and you move through weeks of learning, where are the essential standards meeting with the benchmark curriculum that you're looking at, because we know that your time is very limited with your students. So you want to focus on the heavy hitters, those standards that are lasting through multiple years in their career. So take a look at this video that's embedded here, and those essential standards are also a link here for you, so that you can start to see what are those lessons, what are those key components within each unit or within each week that I need to make sure I find time to hit, and then start to build off of that as a possible starting place. We're not going to watch the video today, sorry. but it is there, and it's a great tool for you. So I know we just came at you with a bunch of information real quick. We have a few minutes left and some more information to share with you. But what are any possible questions that you have right away? We want to make sure to address those. Feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat. It looks like no questions so far. If you think of anything, let us know. We're not going to force you to ask a question, but if you think of something and there's something we can help you with, please let us know. The other resource that we want to share with you today is a Google Classroom that was created specifically for benchmark training. We recognize that a typical benchmark training is 3 days worth of intense deep dives into all the components of benchmark, knowing now more than ever that your time is so scarce and so precious. This Google Classroom will allow you to click on the link to join the classroom. Once you're in that classroom, you're going to be able to filter into all of the different components within benchmark. You can start at the top and move through. It'll take you about 4 hours to go through each of the modules. They don't have to be done all together, but you can pick and choose or break it up into several sessions. Once you're done, you will get a certificate of completion so that your principal knows that you've completed 4 hours of benchmark PD. But these are going to be videos, resources, slides, support for all of the components of benchmark. It also will serve as a place where these videos of any of the trainings that we do are also housed. So you can go in and see possible PD trainings that you might have missed and be able to catch up on those resources. Now, when you're in this Google Classroom, things are topicked. So you have, each module has different topics within it. So if you're looking for one specific topic, you can go and find the answers within each individual training without having to go through the entire module or reaching out for support. So I highly encourage you to click on some of the links here. The picture is a link. This blue wording is also a link to be able to connect you to that Google Classroom to get more information and be connected with a ton of resources. Again, here's that link to join that classroom if that's a better way for you to join in. And again, we're always adding new content as benchmark materials change or training is provided. Things will always be added to that Google Classroom for you. The last thing we want to share with you, this is a this is a video for how to get to that Google Classroom if that's something that's helpful for you as well. The last few things that we want to share with you are just some resources.
This is an introduction.
Sorry. Some additional resources to help you out. The first part that I want to pull your attention to is within your grade level, you're going to have weekly presentations. These weekly presentations are broken down into the content that's easily shared during whole group time for those mini lessons, and it pulls together all of those resources that you're going to be looking for. So these weekly presentations can be presented to your students, they can be edited, they can even be downloaded and added to Google Slides for your students to be able to add to. So take a look at your weekly presentations as something to help you find out graphic organizers or texts or different things that you're looking for your weekly small groups. The ebooks are another great resource. These can be assigned to your students and they can read them. They can also annotate in these books and can be recorded as they read. So lots of fun ways to be able to use these ebooks. So take a look at those ebooks. The other fun thing about ebooks.
Question about this books?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I assigned this book to my class, and one of the students said that they couldn't edit. And I was wondering, was there like a switch I should have turned on, or it's just more training for both of us?
So students are able to edit, but however, they have to click yes. When the sign pops up for the customization, they have to click yes. And because that gives them the ability to edit and for those edits to stay to stay on that book so that way that you could check them out later on and everything. And so sometimes what happens is students will see that customization item pop up and they'll click on no. And that's easily rectified. If they look at the very, very top, they're going to see two symbols. They're going to see a spotlight and they're going to see a hammer. And the spotlight keeps them in that present mode where they can't edit. If they click on the hammer, that menu for customization will pop up again and give them the ability to edit.
Well, okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Great question. Thank you for asking. Again, I wanted to let you know that the best part about these ebooks is that you as a teacher have access to all of the ebooks, K-5. So if you have students that are interested in a topic or need a differentiated reading level, you can assign them books within other grade levels, and you have access to the entire library of benchmark resources. So don't feel like you're stuck with whatever smaller selection you might have. You do have access to them all, K-5. The other thing is e-pocket charts for those of you that are in the K2 setting. This works great as phonics practice as well as asynchronous work for your students to be able to use pocket charts. Again, a tool that's only found within K2, but if you're a 3-5 teacher and your student needs this resource, go down into that grade level and find an e-pocket chart that you can easily assign to students who might need that differentiation. The same with the interactive learning games, which are a great option for asynchronous work or work that can be done small group, which is really fun for students to be able to collaborate around. We also have a video here. This is a link that will take you to show you how to assign and create assignments for your students within Benchmark Universe. This would be outside of Google Classroom or any of the other learning systems that you're using. This would be specific within Benchmark Universe. As your students log into ClassLink at my.aps.edu, they can go to their benchmark setting and see any assignments that you've created for them within the Benchmark Universe platform. This will teach you how to be able to do that, as well as how to download presentations that can be added to Google Slides. All of the steps are here for you. We're not going to go through them because we have only 1 minute left, but this is a resource here as well as an embedded video here for you to be able to learn how to do that on your own time. We also created a video for how to add Benchmark to a Google Classroom, which is important for those teachers that are using Google Classroom because they can work together. We're almost at our time limit, but are there any last questions? Again, we went through a lot of things. If you're ever stuck or need more support, please feel free to reach out to us. Maggie just dropped the links again for this presentation, which has all of our email addresses. This is all of your elementary ELA TSS support. You can contact any of us or all of us, and we're always happy to help and support any of the work that's happening in your classroom. Any last questions or thoughts before we log off for the day? Well, again, thank you all for joining us today. We hope you can come back. We will be having a deeper dive on March 17th. We are calling it Benchmark Discovery around small group guided reading. And if you're looking for some resources or some strategies to use as small group guided reading, we hope you can join us back on February 17th.